The Honkai Star Rail 1.2 special just dropped. And it's honestly so exciting because Blade, Kafka, and Luca, they all look like they're going to be new character archetypes, although they are destruction and nihility. And so today I want to give a first impressions as well as a theoretical pre-release analysis. However, I definitely will be pulling for them and making full guides for them, so subscribe to catch those videos. Hi, I'm Lace. Let's talk Baldi, Kafka, and then Luca. And so Blade is going to be the first destruction character in the Wind class, which is pretty exciting because right now we do have a couple of DPSs in Sampo and Danheng, but what Bladey may actually give us is the possibility of a mono Wind team or an almost mono Wind team with like your Silver Wolf. And this is thanks to the bulk and the sustain that he has in his kit that we'll cover very, very soon. On top of that, because he is a destruction type character, he is going to feature a higher level of aggro, as you can see over here, 125, meaning that he's hopefully going to be hit more often than the rest. And as you can tell, the other Wind characters are looking kind of flimsy. And so for his kit, his basic attack kind of looks like just a normal basic attack, but when he uses his skill, it actually consumes HP to initiate Hellscape. And whilst he's in the Hellscape state, he deals more damage and gets enhanced basic attack, Forest of Swords. Now, Forest of Swords is AoE, but from the live stream, whilst he utterly crushed the middle guy, it kind of looked like he didn't do very much to the other two targets. This could either be because he was equipped with Break Effect and because he only broke the middle guy, he dealt a lot of damage to him, or the alternative is that the ratios for the side damage, they just kind of suck. However, even if the damage is like not that great, I'm still pretty hopeful for it because of the splash breaking. From the footage we saw, the break values look like they are pretty equivalent to the Fire Trailblazers breaking, so honestly, I am pretty keen for that. And the longer Hellscape lasts, the more value we get because we get access to the enhanced basics, which means we are not actually going to be using skill points. The next thing is his talent, where when Blade's HP decreases, his talent is triggered, which gives him a charge. At full stacks, he launches an attack on all enemies and recovers HP, which is fantastic because that sustain may actually let him be the off tank that Clara kind of is. And so therefore, Blade is kind of similar to Clara in which he wants to be attacked by the enemies. And his destruction path certainly helps him with that. However, something that Clara has that he does not is this taunt multiplier. With her ultimate, she gets damage reduction, but she also gets 6 times the aggro, as you can see from this one over here. From what I can tell, Blade is not going to be getting anything like this, although whilst he doesn't have the damage reduction, he does have a heal, which is nice. And because this talent does look like it's a follow-up attack, there is some potential with Luocha, although 5 charges is quite a fair few, especially if you're getting him all by getting hit. Another idea is to actually use March 7's skill, which also multiplies by 6 times on the aggro. However, the issue with this one is that it also grants the target a shield, and we don't really want that because we explicitly need to lose HP in order to trigger that talent. If there was ever a character that did this part, greatly increases the chance of enemies attacking that ally, and it didn't give a shield and maybe gave like defense reduction or something, then that character would essentially skyrocket Blade's value and probably never leave his side. For his ultimate, he sets his HP to 50% and then does a whole bunch of damage to the enemy. This damage also scales off of his HP loss. And so what this ultimate, this skill, and all of this HP scaling and HP cost is telling me is that his ratios are probably based on max HP. And so what that means is that we should just in turn build him with max HP, which is fantastic because it makes him more tankier. But what it also means is that the biggest disappointments in your life other than yourself, like these shitty link ropes, are actually a perfect fit for this guy. However, going back to the ultimate, setting his HP to 50% could either be a heal, going from a lower number to a higher HP value, or you could technically be taking damage because you're going from like 70% down to 50%. All I'm hoping is that when that part happens, I hope you do get a charge for it. And so from what we've seen from him, he's shaping up to be looking like a bruiser, off-tank, sustain kind of dude. And I would probably count on those aspects as well as the breaking, AoE breaking aspect, but probably not on just the damage. I do think that we're gonna have to take another DPS, a main DPS, along with the Bladey. Okay, let's talk about Kafka. Lightning type and Path of Nihility. Unfortunately, her being lightning means that she is technically competing with Jingyuan, and this is because they are technically both DPSs. Even though Kafka looks like a dot specialist like Sampo, where she gets better as you stack more dots. At this point in the game, if you did pull for Jingyuan, I would say that Kafka is probably a lower priority because you want more elemental coverage. However, you already know what they say, it's waifu over meta, my guys. In terms of her kit, her basic attack looks like a basic attack. I don't think there's anything special with Kafka's. Her skill though is very interesting because it kind of looks like a dot detonation. So this is where I do think that the dot stacking is going to reap its benefits. I'm thinking synergies with like your hooks and your Asters because they have the burns, as you can see over here from her enhanced skill. And then Asta gets it on her basic attack. But really, I'm more referring to your boy Sampo over here because his entire kit revolves around dots. Stack up some of these bad boys, some burns, maybe some shock, and then boom. However, it kind of looks like the dot detonation only works on the main target because the skill also does some damage to the adjacent units as well. But look, I don't think it's the end of the world because again, we have some AoE splashing toughness breaking. In terms of the ultimate, it looks pretty good. It does lightning damage to all of the targets, but also helps her apply her own dot type, shock. And on top of that, if they're already shocked, then they take extra damage, which is really nice. I'm just hoping that it shocks first and then it does the calculation. And so what that means is hopefully they get extra damaged every time. Her talent looks quite interesting because when one of your other characters launches a basic attack, then Kafka does pretty much a drive-by on them like a pew, pew, pew. But the interesting part is that it actually looks like it shocks them. And if I'm right about this, where both her talent as well as her ults shocks, then combining those two means that she can actually sustain her own shock and she does not need the help of other lightning units such as Serval, who also applies shock. And before anyone asks, same dot types, they refresh and don't stack on top of each other aside from Wind Shear, or unless you trigger the dot break. Only those stack with each other. And so because of her dot proccing skill, it's actually in our best interest to run Kafka with different elements. Again, for physical, we have Luca, we have Asta and Hook for fire, we've got Sampo for wind, and Serval and herself for lightning. But again, I wouldn't recommend Serval if Kafka really can keep up her own shocks. The other thing about dots that you need to remember is that they do not crit, so crit rate and crit damage are useless. What this means is that you generally want to run attack, speed, and elemental damage. There is potential for Kafka to be built and ran as a hyper carry, but honestly as a Nihility class, I kinda doubt it. It's unlikely that the ratios are gonna hold up. Also, her having a follow-up attack will mean that she has a lot of synergy with Luocha. And so in terms of her teammates, this is probably what it's gonna look like. It's always gonna be Kafka and Sampo until Sampo gets power crept by another better dot support. And the reason that Sampo is just so freaking giga cracked and he will almost never leave the team is because of this guy over here, where he increases the amount of damage that the target takes from dots. Like yes, he is very SP efficient and he does apply a lot of dots and he breaks very well, but on top of that, he makes everybody stronger with this. And then we have the choices of Asta, who can give you speed, attack, damage, defense as a, I guess, offensive support. But on top of all of that, she also does have great fire breaking potential. And remember, breaking also gets you another dot. Something I did want to mention was that Asta does give speed buffs, and speed buffs, whilst normally not important on the other dot units because the damage is not reliant on us moving faster, it's on the targets moving faster because they need to move to get the dot hitting them. But for Kafka, speed is actually really important because she can actually use her dot proccing more often, her skill. Otherwise, the last option is probably going to be Luca, who is going to be dealing bleed. And obviously in slot 4 for now, it's probably going to be your defensive support, whether it's Japad or your Natasha or your Luocha, and then that's kind of like your team. However, there are two other units that I did want to mention before moving on. The first of which is Pella, and the second of which is Silver Wolf. And as you guys can probably guess, it's about their defense down. Just remember that their defense downs also affects dots. And the last note, I promise you it's the last one. The last note that I wanted to make was the frozen interaction. Because freeze locks up the enemy, skips their turn, and then gets them to get to their next turn even faster. However, I did say that their turn gets skipped. In reality, they actually do take the dot proc as well. And so that is probably all I have for Kafka for now. And so last of all, let's talk about your boy Luca, who is our new physical Nihility unit that applies bleeds, as we've alluded to all video. And so because your boy applies bleed, he is a very good match for Kafka. However, what if Kafka was not in the picture, like my dad? When he uses his skill, he has a chance of inflicting bleed. and that is his only source of bleed, which is not really that good. The reason being because if his bleed is on his skill, it means he's going to be using a lot of skill points up. In contrast, your boy Sampo, he applies Wind Shear on his ultimate, on his normal attack, and his skill. However, depending on the duration and his speed, it could be okay. Luca also seems to have a stacking mechanism where when he attacks enough, he gets an enhanced basic attack. And when he uses the enhanced basic attack, it does damage, and if the target is already bleeding, then he'll do even more damage. Now, this is actually a very, very similar mechanic to your girl Hook. If the target is burning and she does actually apply burn, then she will do more damage to them as well. However, the difference is that your girl Hook is a destruction type character, whereas your Luca over here is actually Nihility. And so therefore, I'm not sure of his ratios and his viability as a main DPS. For his ultimate, he deals a whole bunch of damage, a single target damage, but he also increases the amount of damage that is received by the target. Another mechanic that is kind of just like universally good, kind of like defense down, even for Dot. And so I guess the summary for Luca is that for now, he is the only reliable applicator of bleed. And generally speaking, bleed is stronger than a lot of the other dots. So if possible, I would probably take Luca over like your Hook and your Asta. Might take Asta, I'll think about it. That is when we're trying to run Kafka. And so my guys, let me know how you felt about the 1.2 teaser. Are you guys excited for the Blade, for the Kafka, for the Luca? I'm probably most excited about the Kafka because I want to play the .coms. I actually kind of like Sampo. But regardless, let me know down in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, then please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and turning on that notification bell. However, as your boy Luca once said, all good things must come to an end. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.